Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout as we look ahead to Fantasy Premier League Game Week 37. Today I'm joined by Jonas, who is number one in the world in FPL with a 52-point advantage and just 2 game weeks to go. Am I about to interview the FPL champion of 2024-25? Jonas, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Joe. I'm doing really well. I mean, given my position, that's kind of expected, isn't it?
Yeah, that is quite the advantage. But I guess what must be going through your head now as being number one with that big advantage is you're starting to think, if you're winning a football match and you can see the victory, you can see the final, you can hear the final whistle, you know it's happening. But as you know, playing this game, someone might catch you up because it's a massive double game week. Lots of playing bench boosts as well. You never know what could happen in
Of course.
38. So what are you feeling at the moment in terms of could you win it? You're not taking it for granted yet.
No, definitely not.
No.
I know everything can happen. I can't control anything out on the pitch, so I'll just have to keep on doing good transfers and play my own way.
Yeah. What is it like to be number one? Now, I can only imagine. Is it pressurized? Or are you just taking it quite calmly?
Well, honestly, I try to not think too much about it. Trying to do other stuff in my life to just get my mind out of FPL.
Yeah.
But it always pops up somehow.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah, and it would be for me. It would be my last thought before I went to sleep. Would be the first thing I thought of when I woke up. But that's because I've been, presenting these types of things for about a decade, so a bit more consumed by it. What do your family and friends think? Because some people I interview who are number one or have won it, some of their friends are just bemused by it, but for me, and probably you, being top out of 10 million people in anything in life is amazing. But what do your friends and family think?
Well, they think it's fantastic and really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I have many friends and family who's never played the game before. And all of a sudden they follow the scores every week, ask what players I need to score points.
Yeah.
Even my mother, who has been fed up about me and my father talking about FPL for years, all of a sudden finds it quite interesting.
Yeah. Especially because you're based in Norway, and I mean, how big is the Premier League is such a global brand, so big everywhere. But I mean, how well watched is it in Norway?
A lot of people watch it.
Yeah,
It's we're quite known for being quite good at FPL at least.
Yeah,
And every workplace, and you'll always find people who plays FPL.
so it's well known. So yeah, you've been Norwegian media. They've been. Have you been contacted by them? Because I would imagine. I mean, I would if I was a journalist for a Norwegian newspaper.
Yeah, a few newspapers and some podcasts.
Okay.
But I can't join everything, so I have to choose.
Yeah, you have to choose certain ones, definitely. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put your career history up on the screen, and it also shows when you've played your chips as well. And when you played your chips gives an indication of one of the many reasons why you are number one at the moment. But just looking back on your career history as well, so sometimes when I look at these, there's some in the millions, some who've been in the top 2000s. But you've been sort of quite consistent in sort of getting in somewhere like never above a million, so never one of those ranks, but never sort of in the top 100,000 either.
Mm-hmm.
You've sort of been in the middle. So
Yeah.
so what's changed this season? Because this is a huge jump going from, I think your highest is 121,000 to first, and it can't be just luck.
No, of course not. As we might talk about later, I have recently, through other fantasy football games, stumbled upon analytics and models.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure there's no chance I would have been in this position without it.
Right.
But there are many players who play that way.
Yeah.
I believe solely relying on analytics can get you to really good positions, but sometimes you have to go with your own gut and just
Yeah.
go against the model.
So, I know a lot of my colleagues at Fantasy Football Scout, they follow analytics a lot in the community. To hear you go say, "Oh, in the year I started to follow and use analytics more, um, I've gone from a 121k tops manager to the first for a period, hopefully till the end."
Hopefully.
That's they'll love that. How much do you? Because I use it a bit, but
Hmm.
I'm old. I'm quite old school as well, and so
Hmm.
I like to sort of use it as one part of a sort of mesh of information that I draw on. It's a valid part of information I draw on, but it's one of many. So how do you use analytics? I might as well sort of get into this now.
Yeah, of
Do you
course.
what how do you personalize it?
I use it quite frequently, almost every week. And it's mostly either if I'm stuck and have no idea what to do, or
Yeah.
just to find out if my theory is insane or if it's actually good.
Okay.
Then also the occasional solve when I'm bored and have nothing to do.
Yeah. So, is there an example you can give this season where you sort of it's really helped on a 50-50 call, or it's helped with a key decision?
Guardiola in game week 32, I think it was. First he got the 0 pointer, but after that he's been really, really good.
Yeah, and that was the analytics of show. Yeah,
Yeah.
admittedly, I had all that data and ignored it, so he's not in my team. Looking at the strategy as well, now it's patently evident that the free hit in game week 34, as opposed to using it in 29, and using a wild card slightly earlier in game week 30, which meant you could keep, for example, Arsenal and Liverpool assets because they were needed then, less needed now.
Hmm.
That seems to be the strategy that has won this season. Would you sort of agree with that?
Well, I
Well,
I
not
believe
necessarily with
chip.
you, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I believe chip strategies are very team dependent. For some teams, I know for it in 29 and wildcard in 35 was the best strategy. Me personally, I settled quite early on my chip strategy and was quite well set up for dead ending into 29. Although I do believe many players are cheap and follow the free 29
Yeah,
strategy because they see good players or
mm.
content creators play it and
Yeah,
maybe don't make a proper plan themselves.
right. Yeah, definitely.
Also, of course, there's a lot of variance involved.
Yeah,
No one could predict, for example, Regulon, who was a popular free 29 asset, getting a red after what, 10
yeah,
minutes?
yeah,
And no one could predict that Mateta was going to turn into
yeah,
prime Luis Suarez and for 2 games.
yeah. Yeah, it is. Also Fulham not just beating Spurs, but overwhelming Spurs
Yeah, of
in game
course.
week 29. That completely ruined that free hit as well. And that could have
Mm.
been the other way round. Spurs could have scored loads of goals. Crystal Palace, as you said, could have not been like sort of prime Liverpool, and
Yeah.
that could have worked the other way. But yes, nevertheless, I guess that's what analytics is about. Is about narrowing the odds,
Mm.
and there were good odds on Palace doing well in 34, I would say.
Yeah, of course there was. But no one could predict they were going to overperform that much.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
definitely.
that's just some positive variance,
Yeah,
which I seem to have a lot of this season.
yeah. Yeah. So, what with the analytics, what advice would you give for managers like me who use it a bit, or others who might be going, "What the hell are they talking about?" What advice would you give about using that information from analytics, using that data, and for their teams?
As I said earlier, I think it's a really good tool, and using for example, expected value and all that stuff, it's really helpful. But sometimes you have to make up your own mind as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to solely rely on it.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think what we should do is put you now. I know Not going to put your team up, which you haven't even made yet, for your transfers for 37
I
because,
made the best team, but that's it.
but no, yeah, don't. You're not going to show it, and also I wouldn't want you to because it would be. If you're in this position now, you need to keep some secrets because there's a whole bunch of managers trying to catch you up.
Yeah, of course.
But we'll talk about sort of in general terms. So what I'll do is I'm going to put your Game Week 36 team up. So this is so people can see what you're sort of starting the game week preparation with, and they can probably got their own ideas about what they do the team. A lot of teams will be quite similar to this as well. I've also got the fixtures up on the screen, so I'm just going to quickly read this out just for the benefit of those listening on the podcast version. And so on this team in 36, you went into that with a 3-4-3 with Pickford, Byrne, Gvardiol, and Gabriel, and then across the middle you got Foden, Saka, Palmer, Son, and up front Jackson, Isak, Haaland, and on the bench Petrovic, Garnacho, Dallo, and Pedro Porro. And the things of note with this is that you haven't been caught out like I have of having Harry Maguire, Fernandes, and Cher. I've got the hat trick of injury hit players, and remains to be seen with Fernandes. So I've got to use those transfers on injuries to address those injuries. You looking at your team, you don't have to. You can use that to make it a bit better. But also looking at that is you've got sort of quite a lot of you've got a couple of Manchester United players, and they didn't look so good earlier in the week, so that's a bit of new information, and I'm sure the analytics has probably picked that up as well. So just in broad terms then, I would imagine, what advice would you give those going into game week 37, given that Tottenham, Chelsea, Newcastle, City, Brighton, Manchester United all double, and there's other teams with good fixtures, plus there's game week 38 to think about?
So yeah. First of all, I think too many people are getting caught up on doubles. 15 doublers isn't necessarily better than 13 and like two really good solid single game week players. And also you must not forget that we have game week 38 as well.
Yeah.
Also, for me, quite obvious, but if you have any chips, I'd suggest to play them this week.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I was going to say is it's evident you're going to play a bench boost. I don't think that would be the secret there.
I've already said on my Twitter.
Yeah. It would be foolhardy not to, with this team, not to play it in a double game week 37. Looking at this particular team, though, you mentioned about some of the single game weekers. So someone say in my position, Fernandes could be a doubt. I've got two defenders to replace. I'm probably set on getting Byrne anyway. But in terms of another one, so you mentioned single game weekers. So I'm starting to think about. Obviously, I've got two Arsenal defenders, but if I didn't, I'd be thinking of an Arsenal double up. I'm also starting to think about getting Robertson in from Liverpool in game week 38 for ahead of game week 38, but actually give him a go in 37. So is that the kind of thing that you're thinking of in terms of those sorts of single players?
No, what I'm thinking about is that, like, if you have double or triple Arsenal, for example, I wouldn't rush to get them out, as they, for example, have Everton at home in 38. And you will most probably want some Arsenal players and also Liverpool as well in 38.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I'm thinking in terms of sort of actively getting in. But I guess from your point of view, it's more a case of if you've got a Robertson or if you've got Saka or Gabriel, these are not players to remove just because they don't have a double.
And my position is also quite unique, I'd say, because I don't have any injuries. I've been really lucky with them.
I mean,
I know there are plenty of people like you who has 2, 3, maybe even 4 injuries.
Well, 3 and counting, yeah. Yeah, so I mean that gives you, so for those in your position, because you're in a similar position to my colleague Tom Freeman, who's the deputy editor of Fantasy Football Scout, that I do a video with a couple of videos with during the week, and I
Hmm.
do a team selection video where we compare our teams for going into the week. So my one's obviously got loads of flags, and his one is like yours; it's got no flags.
Hmm.
So for those who are in a lucky position like yours, what would you say would be the key moves to do? So you've got to obviously be careful, like not to say exactly a player that you're thinking of, but the sorts of players and teams you would go for if you're in a lucky position where you actually use transfers just simply to improve it rather than replace someone who's injured.
Mm, if you're in that position, and let's say you're chasing, for example, in the mini league or just for a better overall rank,
Yeah.
I think there's a fair few Spurs players that's worth having a look at. Which they have a double now, and
Yeah.
they also have a very nice fixture against Sheffield United in game week 38. So yeah, for instance, Richarlison then.
Yeah. So I mean, for example, Manchester United players out for Spurs players would seem sensible as well. But also, now you're tripled up on Chelsea players, so I imagine you're not. But would, if you weren't tripled up on Chelsea at the moment, would a move to someone like a differential like Madueke, for example, be quite good?
Of course, he can score points. He's
Yeah.
showed that the last 5, 6 weeks or so. Personally, I'm in the position where I don't have to go for Madueke,
Yeah.
but I definitely think he's viable.
Yeah, definitely. With Newcastle as well, tripling up there, I would imagine would be advantageous. Isak's in a number of teams. Gordon's in a few. There's also the possibility that Trippier could return as well. So, what's your sort of general advice you would give for Newcastle? What would be your ideal Newcastle triple up going into this double,
Mm,
or at all?
Burn, Gordon, Isaac.
Okay, yeah,
That's my ideal triple up
yeah.
from Newcastle.
Would you
I,
be?
I know Trippier might be back, but if he's getting 2 starts in the double, not so sure.
Yeah, no, I did a video with an ex Premier League player, Matt Heath, yesterday,
Hmm.
and he was saying along the same lines. He's doing pretty well as well. He's in the top 200, but he was
I saw
saying
that.
on a very similar lines that as a former Premier League player, knowing a player's coming back from a long term injury and they've got like games in quick succession, they're not playing all of those games, if at all. So yeah, he wasn't so keen on getting Trippier in at all. Looking at Man City as well, I imagine. I mean, I would say you've got the best Man City triple up. I don't. I've got Edison for my sins. But what I mean, would you agree that you've got the best Man City triple up here in Gvardiol, Foden, and Haaland?
Well, I think uh, getting De Bruyne in, if you don't have a triple and you're,
Ah,
as I said earlier, chasing, might be an all right differential.
okay.
Even though I think Foden will outscore him, but you never know.
No.
It's a double game week.
Yeah. With Liverpool, there's no Liverpool here. They do play Villa, so it's a tough game in 37. But they're a key target in 38. So, are you minded to try and save a transfer, go into 38 with 2 free transfers? I know I certainly would if I didn't have to firefight injuries.
I actually usually delay thinking about my transfers until the day before deadline,
Okay, good.
just to do everything else and not have to think about it. Um, uh, but yeah, sure,
Yeah,
why not? You know there might be some benchings here and
yeah,
there, and but for those who are on a few Arsenal, a
yeah,
few City players, they will probably
yeah,
go right to the last game,
yeah.
and they will probably play their best 11.
And going into that final game week in 38. Now, There was we've had some contributors as well over the years that have been in that position to be in sort of top five, and there's always a decision to be made. Do you go for that differential captain, or do you just play it safe? Now, obviously, if you've got 50, 30, 60 point lead, whatever it is, your instinct would be to play safe, I would imagine. But for those chasing, they might want to be a bit different as well. Now, in my opinion, I think Palmer could be the safest captain for 38. Just because I don't know, I think Man City might have won the league by then, and I don't know what their team will be. And Palmer's reliable. And I think if it's possible, getting Salah in and captain him would be for the chasers. But that's just my view. Who do you think is the sort of safe captain in 38, and who do you think's the I've got to do something here, captain?
Well, obviously, if Man City and Arsenal still have everything to play for,
Yeah, then
don't go against Haaland.
No.
I think he's the safe one then.
Yeah.
If not, I'm inclined to agree with you with Salah. They have a nice fixture, and it's Klopp's last game. I don't know if that matters anything.
No, I
And
think no, I think it would because last home game as well. That's always good. I do like home games in that final for the captains, but I think it just underlines Palmer as well. That if Man City, if it's a dead rubber game, it doesn't matter what happens for them. In 38, I personally like Palmer, but I guess for Arsenal players as well, if someone's thinking, I really want to captain an Arsenal player against Everton at home in 38, which is very reasonable, very good idea. Who would be the sort of ideal one? Would it be Saka, or do you think actually someone like Havertz has actually sort of overtaken Saka now as the captain?
I think as long as Saka has the pens,
Yeah.
he's the best choice in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think one of the reasons I sort of ask that now is because the decisions we've got to make now depends. So, for example, if if you get a defender that's over a certain amount of money, that might lock you out of Saka. So you need to sort of think about, I need to get a cheaper player this week to enable to get Saka the following week and things like that. Just before we go, I mean, just what's your sort of, have you got anything else to sort of add, or sort of any sort of other general sort of advice for managers who are in their own mini leagues, whether they're top or they're chasing? What sort of general advice would you give going into these final two sets of fixtures?
I'm still big on that, not getting caught up on doublers.
Okay.
Because we have a game week 38 coming up. Also, I'd like to add that I think Newcastle, Man City, and Chelsea have the best doubles this week. And ideally, if you could triple up on all.
Yeah, so that would be, I mean, that's nine players, so that's the bulk of your team for that week, really. I do like your advice about Tottenham in terms of if you've got their attack does look quite strong at the moment, especially for that game week 38 fixture, because they've got Sheffield United away then, which is good. Well, Jonas, thanks so much for joining me. Good. I mean, need to say it's not just good luck with the game week 37, but good luck in game week 38, and good luck being number one. It would be I'd be very very pleased to have interviewed you if you whether you win it or not win it. It's been fascinating to find out what it's like to be in number one. I always find that interesting. But good luck with the mission to be number one by the end of it all.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks a lot for your time.